Have you ever stopped to think about how a country is really born? I'm not talking about just drawing lines on a map, but the actual idea of a nation taking root in millions of people's minds. Well, today, we're diving into the incredible story of how a scattered group of islands became the Philippines. And you'll see how events happening thousands of miles away ended up lighting the fuse for a revolution. So, this is the big question we're tackling. What's the magic ingredient? What does it take to turn all these separate communities into one single, unified people who feel like they belong together? Is it a shared enemy, a brilliant new idea, or something else? Let's go find some clues. Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page with a key term, nationalism. Now, this is way more than just waving a flag. Our source material breaks it down as an ideology, a belief system built on loyalty, sure, and pride in your culture, yeah. But here's the crucial part, the desire for freedom and progress. That desire is the engine we're going to be tracking. To really get how this nation woke up, we first have to understand what it looked like when it was still, well, asleep. You know, what's really fascinating here is that before the Spanish ever arrived, there was no concept of a Filipino nation, just separate kingdoms and communities. And even after Spain took over and set up towns or pueblos, people were still pretty divided. You had dozens of different languages, different local identities. So even though they were all ruled by one crown, they didn't yet see themselves as one people.
So, what was the turning point? It started with something internal and pretty grim, a shared experience. Centuries of abuse and hardship under Spanish rule created this really powerful common bond. It was a bond forged in pain for sure, but it was a bond. And that shared suffering created the perfect, fertile ground for new ideas to take root. People were hungry for a change.
And that new idea? It came all the way from Europe. This was the first major global spark, a full-blown philosophical revolution, the Age of Enlightenment. So you might be asking, how on earth did these radical ideas get from a fancy salon in Paris to the shores of the Philippines? Well, here's the pathway. It starts in Europe, right? Then it gets picked up by the Filipino intelligentsia. This is the educated class, the thinkers and writers who were studying abroad. And then they brought these incredible new concepts of freedom and individual rights back home with them, and the ideas began to spread. And this quote just nails it. These new ideas gave Filipinos a new language, a new lens to see their own situation through. It wasn't just bad luck anymore. It was injustice. And that realization, that's what our source says, directly sparked this new sense of nationalism. Okay, ideas are one thing. They're powerful. But seeing a practical example, that's a whole different level. And the next spark came from Spain itself, in the form of a revolutionary political document. I mean, just look at this stuff from the Cadiz Constitution of 1812. The right for men to vote, freedom of speech, land reform. This wasn't just philosophy. This was a concrete blueprint for a totally new and much fairer society. It was a complete 180 from the absolute monarchy they'd been living under for centuries. And here's the kicker. Even though this constitution was never really put into practice in the Philippines, its very existence was a game changer. It proved that another way was possible. It opened people's eyes to the idea that they actually had rights, and that freedom from tyranny wasn't just some crazy dream. It was a real political possibility. Now, it wasn't just politics that were changing. A huge shift was happening in the global economy, moving away from that old-school colonial model. So, for hundreds of years, the world ran on mercantilism. Think of it as colonizers just hoarding all the resources from a colony for themselves. But then, the Industrial Revolution came along, and it demanded something totally new, capitalism. The idea of laissez-faire or free trade. This new system basically forced Spain to open up the Philippines' ports to the rest of the world. And just like that, its economic isolation was shattered. This new global economy needed new global highways. And that brings us to our final spark, a massive feat of engineering that literally shortened the distance between the Philippines and the heart of all this revolution.
Get this, before 1869, if you wanted to sail from the Philippines to Spain, you were in for a grueling 3-month journey all the way around the tip of Africa. 3 whole months.
And then the Suez Canal opened, and that same journey, it was suddenly cut down to just 1 month. That is an absolutely incredible leap. It literally shrank the world overnight. And listen, this wasn't just about getting goods to market faster. The most important cargo on these quicker ships wasn't sugar or tobacco, it was information.
It was books, newspapers, and people, all carrying these revolutionary ideas like liberty, equality, fraternity, from Europe straight to the islands at a speed nobody could have imagined before. So all the pieces are on the board. The stage is set for the final act, the birth of a nation's consciousness. So let's just quickly recap the 4 global sparks we've tracked down. We had new ideas from the Enlightenment, a new political blueprint from the Caddis Constitution, a whole new economic reality thanks to capitalism, and a brand new connection to the world forged by the Suez Canal. And this right here, this is the main takeaway. Filipino nationalism was not born in a vacuum. It was the result of a perfect storm. You had these powerful external forces from all over the world colliding with the internal reality of shared suffering. The world provided the spark, and the archipelago, with its deep-seated desire for change, was ready to catch fire.
It's just such a powerful story about how interconnected our world has always been. And it leaves us with one last thing to chew on. If those were the global forces that sparked a nation into existence more than a century ago, what global forces of technology, of economics, of ideas are shaping what it means to be a nation right now, today?